The Premier League is a private company wholly owned by its 20 member clubs who make up the league at any one time. Here is a list of all owners, including share percentage and nationalities within the Premier League football clubs. Arsenal is 100% owned by American Enos Stanley Kroenke. Aston Villa has a 50-50% share between Nassef Sawiris, who is an Egyptian, and Wes Edens, who is an American. AFC Bournemouth is owned by Bill Foley, who is an American and the majority co-owner, and Michael Bakary Jordan, an American who is the minority co-owner. Brentford is 100% owned by Matthew Benham, who is British. Brighton and Hove is owned by Tony Bloom, who is from England. Chelsea is owned by Clearlake Capital that takes up 48%. Todd Boehly, who is an American, Jonathan Goldstein, who is British, Mark Walter, who is American, Hans-Jörg Wyss, who is Swiss. They each have 13% shares. Crystal Palace is owned by John Textor, who has 45% shares, John Harris, who has 18% shares, David Blitzer, who has 18% shares, Steve Parish, who has 10% shares, Robert Franco with 5% shares, and other investors who take up 4% of the shares. Everton is owned by Fahad Moshiri, who is half British, half Iranian, and his shares are 90%. Lord Grantchester of the United Kingdom has 7.9% of the shares, and other investors share 2.1%. Fulham is owned by Shahid Khan, a Pakistan American who has all the 100% shares. Ipswich Town is owned by GameChanger Limited that takes up 50%, Brightpath Sports Partners who take up 40%, and other investors who take up 10%. Leicester City is owned by Thai businessman Aiya Watt that took up the chairmanship of the club when his dad passed on. Liverpool is owned by John Henry, who is an American and takes up 98%, and LeBron James, an American basketball player who owns 2%. Manchester City is owned by Sheikh Mansour of UAE. He takes up 81%. It's also owned by Silver Lake of USA that takes up 18%, and China Media Capital from China that owns 1%. Manchester United is owned by Glazer family, who are Americans and take up 72.3%, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe from England that take up 27.7%. Newcastle is owned by the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia that takes up 85% of the club, and the Rubens family from England that takes up 15%. Nottingham is owned by Evangelos Marinakis, who is from Greece. Southampton is 80% owned by Dragan Solak from Serbia and Katharina Leiberg, who is from Swiss, that owns 20%. Tottenham Hotspur is owned by Joe Lewis from England, who has shares of 71.1%, and Daniel Levy from England, who has 28.9%. West Ham United is owned by David Sullivan, who is British and takes up 38.8%. Daniel Kretinsky from CZEC, who owns 27%. Vanessa Gold from England, who owns 25.1%. J. Albert Tripp Smith, an American, who owns 8%. And other investors that own 1.1%. Last but not least, Wolves is owned by Fosun Group, that is from China. If you have enjoyed this video to this part, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Always remember to keep it Sky Entertainment KE.